You're tuned into Black Hollywood Live, the world's first digital broadcast network devoted entirely to urban entertainment and pop culture. Tune in right now.
Hey guys, welcome. This is the Black Hollywood Reporter. This week we'll be talking defunding the police, specifically on Hollywood sets. Lin-Manuel Miranda is breaking in $75 million with that Hamilton and Disney deal. Black Hollywood speaks out, but is the industry listening? We get into the Variety cover story this week, and then not to be outdone by last week's Gap story, Kanye is running for president. Girl, in 2020, y'all, in 2020. We're ready to get all into it. Sam, unfortunately, couldn't be here with us today. We have LaToya Blakely, host and lawyer extraordinaire, blessing us with her presence today. Welcome, LaToya.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, oh boy, topic after topic. So much crazy stuff. We can get to everything in due time. I think first we wanted to get into that huge Variety cover story, which is the reckoning in Hollywood, kind of the state of Black Hollywood. Oh man, so there's a lot in there, tons of heavy hitters. They have some great quotes and got to talk to some really important people, Channing Dungey, Matthew Cherry. They started off with Amber Riley though, and she talked a little bit about how it was for her being a Black woman in the industry. Just some really sad, kind of harrowing stories about her just basically being devalued and being told that her white co-stars couldn't be fired, more or less, and that told to her face by a producer that she was kind of expendable. Was that surprising to you, LaToya Blakely, this article?
Unfortunately, it wasn't surprising. I mean, I think that we all know Hollywood has a hierarchy, and at the top are white men who kind of sit up there by themselves. I've read stories about white women as well, being told when male white acting counterparts abuse them in some way, basically like, sorry, suck it up and deal with it. Like that person can't be fired. So I'm not surprised at all that a Black woman is told basically that you're the bottom of the barrel. I mean, obviously, as a Black woman who's working in this industry or any industry, you want to be appreciated and you want to be recognized as an equal and someone just as valuable. And so I'm glad that these stories are coming to light. But the question is, are the people in charge really listening? And are they taking the steps to change the way that things have been done for so long?
And that's a great point, LaToya. That's what they talk about more or less in the article. Amber Riley started a hashtag #UnmuteNY, where people or other Black women or just Black people could share the experiences that they've had in the industry. And that has been gaining some traction. I thought it was interesting in the article that they got into every facet of the industry, because I think a lot of times we just focus on the artists, we focus on the actors and who's out front and who we see on screen. But especially what we try and do on this show is to get kind of behind the scenes people, below the line people, and people that are working in writing and production. And I felt like the article did a really good job of getting the opinion of those people as well. So I was excited to hear from Matthew Cherry, who we know is an Oscar winner this year with Hair Love. And he's been doing a lot of producing on Mixedest and Blackish. But I thought it was interesting that he talked about writers specifically not being able to have the same opportunity as their white counterparts, African-American writers. And he was just saying, the problem is that you look at the people that get opportunities, and for the past 30, 40, 50 years, it hasn't been us, and how people pick writers, especially if they're talking about a big movie production, is they go off of a list of people that have just kind of already been doing it, off people that have a name. And he was saying that's really hard to do because we don't get the opportunities to make a name, for ourselves. So that was really frustrating, kind of the cycle of, well, we need people who are experienced, but it's hard for us to get in the room and even get that experience, get that experience. So what did you think, LaToya, about the people that are kind of below the line or behind the camera also needing to be heard as well?
I mean, I think it starts from the bottom up and left to right. Like every position, there needs to be diversity. I act as well, and I've done quite a bit of commercial work. And let's say I've done 100 commercials, maybe 2 of them had someone of color a part of the production process. You know what I mean? When it comes from the client who is the company doing the commercial to the ad agency to the producers, the director, it's white person after white person after white person. Maybe you get one Asian or maybe you get one Black person, but how can stories be authentically diverse if the people behind the story aren't diverse? And with writers, to me, it's so obvious when I see a Black movie that's been written by a non-Black person, especially a white person, because the story is inherently skewed. The movie Detroit, 30 minutes into that movie, I was like, this was absolutely written by a white person, absolutely written by a white person. And it was, and it's so obvious. So I just think that if we want an entertainment industry that's representative of the world that we live in, which is extremely diverse, every position needs to consistently have diversity.
Yeah, I mean, it's an excellent point. That's what I'm on board with. So the article did a really good job of kind of getting behind the programs that have been pushed forward and, as and lauded as these are the great, these are the best programs. There's so many studios, production companies, networks that have these writing programs specifically for writers, programs that will groom writers. They kind of do like a contest type of format. And then they are supposed to groom writers to be able to get into this pipeline. I thought Ashley Nicole Black had a really good point when she talked about the networks will pay for a writer of color to be staffed, but the intention is that eventually the show that the writer is staffed on will hire the writer. But what normally happens is just like a cycle of writers coming through that are of color. And what the showrunner normally sees is like, oh, well, if the studio is going to pay for a writer that's diverse, I won't promote this writer that I have. I'll just wait until that person's 1 year, 2 year, or 3 year, depending on the program, time lapses out. And then I'll just get another free writer of color to fill that spot. And so it's just a carousel of writers of colors coming and going with none actually being hired to permanent positions. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what a great intention just being abused repeatedly. And apparently that happens a lot in these programs. Was that surprising to you? What did you think about that whole situation Ashley Nicole Black talked about?
So many thoughts about what you just said. I think the first thought is it feels like affirmative action within the entertainment industry to give people of color a chance. Like that's what it feels like. And it's a little sad that we even need programs like that. Like whenever I hear of a diversity and inclusion department within an organization, I'm like, really, it's sad that you need that you need a group of people with the only goal of promoting diversity. But then what do they even do? So then that becomes my other question, like what diversity and what measures of inclusion have been created and are being utilized consistently to have diversity throughout the entire organization? I just feel like so many of the diversity and inclusion departments get to do a little bit, but the program really services the same little pocket of people and it doesn't permeate throughout the entire organization. As well as hearing you talk, why can't I promote this writer of color to a new position, right? And then still bring in a new free writer, if that's the way you're looking at it. I think that people like power, people like money, people like what's comfortable to them. And so that good old boy club and network is what's easy, it's what's comfortable, it's what's profitable, and that's what we do, unless we're forced to change. And that pressure stays, and it comes from all areas.
Yeah, and then we're back to that expendable quality again, right? Because the idea is not to promote a person of color. The idea is that the person of color on staff is expendable, because I'll just get another one and that will be able to fill that spot, and that will be for free, which is like, wow, awesome. Yeah, we want to do it for free. It's just like, oh, so it has to be so disheartening. And not to say that those programs don't work, because over at NBC, they highlighted that's how Childish Gambino, Donald Glover got his start, was through an NBC writing program, right? So it works some places. But the problem is that most places it doesn't work, right? Like CBS has a whole diversity and inclusion piece they do a lot with diversity over there, one of the most diverse networks. But the issue is that that's the anomaly, right? And we don't see that being transposed all over. I think having Channing Dungey, who used to run ABC, now she's the vice president of original program over at Netflix, speaking about specifically how 80% more actually than 80% of executive producers and showrunners are white. And you don't see that diversity at the upper echelons of productions and shows. And so that's something that she has been working against. And also Tara Duncan, I think we talked about her a few weeks ago when she got promoted to president of Freeform. She is one of the co-founders of the Time's Up movement, and she created a program called Who's in the Room. It's an executive mentoring program that improves diversity among executives and producers. And so they have a small class of like maybe 20, 23 people, I think they said, that they've been mentoring over the past year and that they've helped to move into those higher executive positions. Mm-hmm. So I feel like more programs like that, because we need more representation, like you said. We need more representation in storytelling on the writing end, but you need more representation in executives and producers to be able to green light those programs when they even come across your desk to see the value in those stories.
Even PAs, like when I show up to set, I just want to see someone else that looks like me. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's so unfortunate when we go places in this world and you're the only one or one of few, like it's just beyond time. And to go back to Amber's original statement, as an actor, the majority of your life is rejection. We audition again, we do callbacks, we're hoping, we're praying, we're trying to stay distracted. So to have to deal with the race issue and the woman issue on top of the rejection that's already inherent in this job, like it's just an unnecessary concern, and it's something that we should not have to worry about. And then if you get the job, you have to worry about not being paid equally. It's like, when does that list get to end?
Girl, that part. And that's why I thought the ending of the story was so uplifting when it talked about her, because in the beginning, she talked about how depressed she was and she lost all this weight and she ended up in the hospital. But now she's kind of regained her power and she's like, listen, I'm going to be on set. I don't have to be in front of camera. I can be producing. I can be writing. I can be doing a number of different things, but I'm here and I'm part of Hollywood and I'm going to be here. And I really appreciate it. I was like, yes, because we love her. She is so talented. Yeah. So talented. Yeah. So you had a little news about our boy, Lin-Manuel Miranda, with this huge Hamilton debut on Disney this week.
I do. And guys, I have to be honest with you. I've never seen Hamilton. I'm not even at the party. I was going to say I'm late to the party, but I'm not even at the party. And so I read this article and I'm so impressed with him for so many reasons. So Lin-Manuel Miranda, like, let me make sure I say that right, wrote Hamilton. But first of all, he's a New York native. He has extremely successful parents. His dad, I think, was a political consultant. His mom, a psychologist. The parents encouraged him and his sister to be a part of the arts. They both took piano lessons. And so he wrote Hamilton. He starred in Hamilton for a couple of years. And then he sold the rights to Disney for this live stream that they did, right? And so he made $75 million on that deal, or at least the deal was worth $75 million. I don't know where all the money went.
The cats got some of that, I heard.
Right? Yeah. Which is amazing. And he's made so much money from this show. And so I just think that, one, he's incredible. And apparently I need to get on Instagram. I need to get to this party.
You need my Disney password after this.
I do.
So you can watch it. You gotta watch it.
Of what is Hamilton. And I'm just really impressed that a New York native is doing so much in his city and for people that look like him. What do you think about it, Kay? Because you know way more about.
I mean, I'm a Hamilton devotee. I mean, I didn't see it live. I bought tickets for my daughter this year to take her to go see it for her birthday, but it was canceled because of Corona. So that was a little disappointing. But I've always wanted to see it. I was super excited when somebody bootlegged it like a year and a half ago. And it was really tough for my family because we all like it. And so we were like, should we watch it? Is it wrong to Lin-Manuel to watch? So we decided not to watch it. We didn't watch the bootleg as a family. That's how devoted we are to Lin-Manuel Miranda and his art and artistic vision. So it felt like a special reward to be able to see it a whole year later, because I know they were supposed to release it in 2021, but they released it this year. And we were lucky that we were already on board with Disney Plus. So we got to see it. But I just love it. It's such a hip hop story. I mean, like, I know some people love it for history, but I'm just a lover of especially like old school hip hop. And there are so many send ups to old school hip hop, to the point where I was watching it with my kids and I kept pausing it. Like, I would pause it, like, remember, the 10 Dual Commandments is made off of the 10 Crack Commandments, which was made famous by Biggie Smalls in his second album, Ready to Die. My kids was like, if you don't stop pausing this, you know what I mean? Like, because there's certain points that are just so hip hop. When he goes, ha, 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 I pause it. Oh, ha, 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 is actually a call back to a hip hop. I mean, it is just so hip hop. There's so much to love about it. Anyway, I could go on and on. What I did find interesting was that he sold the rights to Disney for streaming for that $75 million. And we talked about on this show last week how Leslie Odom Jr., who plays Aaron Burr, really fought for the rest of the cast to be able to be paid the money that they should when it came to the production. And we see why that was so important moving forward, right? So they get in the bag too. But the interesting thing I read was that Lin-Manuel still has the theatrical rights. So if he wanted to release Hamilton as a movie, he could, and make money off of that outside of Disney. I was like, when you talk about a man getting the money, like, and this is about all behind the scenes stuff we like to talk here, so we can talk about the bag. I was just like, this dude is more than a genius. Like, he's getting the money.
I'm like, I so need to look him up. Like I said, I don't know much about him. I'm assuming he's late 30s, maybe early 40s.
Early 40s. He's like my generation of like, old school hip hop. Yeah. Grew up with that 90s, 80s hip hop. Yeah.
And I just have to say, and you've already basically hit on this, is that it's based on the United States' first Treasury Secretary. So the fact that he would take history, which I've never been a fan of, especially not in school, right? Like learning about the different wars, and I just didn't care when I was in school. Though I made good grades. I always made the grades I needed to make.
Well, we know you did. We know you did, smart y'all.
But the fact that he could take such an old historical event and make it something that people of all generations are interested in, like, kudos to this man. And I just wish I had just like a little fraction of his creative ability and genius.
Yes. I will say that, the Supreme Court came out with that electoral college ruling today, and Elena Kagan wrote like a little nod to Hamilton in her argument. And somebody put, well, I see Elena Kagan has been watching Hamilton this weekend. Like, I was like, yes, it's so random that she would put it in there, because it's all the founding fathers type stuff. But she was like, and Hamilton. I was like, girl, what? Yeah. Anyway, I just thought that was hilarious. Oh yeah. So next up, we want to talk about. So we've been talking about defunding the police and police representation, just when it comes to Hollywood and TV and movies. But what caught my eye this week was specifically the talk of defunding the police on Hollywood sets specifically. So I think the picture we're going to throw up is from the Golden Globes, because I was reading through this article and it was just talking. I mean, a lot of people have been calling for defunding on Hollywood sets. Michael B. Jordan said, basically, I'm not using police on any of my projects anymore. He said, I'm doing private security only for everything I do. He made that announcement. And then Kendrick Sampson from Insecure basically said, listen, I'm going to quote him directly. He said, coming to set after experiencing police brutality, there's trauma there. I've also been profiled or seen people profiled and blocked from entering various parties, after parties, award shows by the police. But the idea that for some people who've experienced trauma at the hand of police to go on set where there are more police would be re-traumatizing. I think it's a really good point that not a lot of people think about. So I was like, wow, props out to Kendrick for saying that. We know he's super active in the Black Lives Matter movement. He talked about while he was protesting these past couple of months, he actually took 7 rubber bullets from police. So, I mean, I just think going through all of that, it would be really difficult to then go onto a set that's, being protected or watched by cops. Like, they're supposed to be protecting you, but on set, right? But like, they're supposed to be protecting you in real life too, and they don't all the time do that. So I could see how that would be kind of a difficult rub for a lot of people. What were your thoughts about that, Latoya?
Once again, I have so many thoughts. Obviously, all police officers are not bad. All police forces are not bad. I've had some really close people to me who are in law enforcement. As an attorney, I work with law enforcement, whether it's a bailiff in a courtroom or an officer at the jail or, a detective, like whoever it is. It's a very common day for me to interact with law enforcement. But I agree. I agree because I think that we need to take power and additional funding away from police officers. I think that private security firms can offer the same amount of security and accomplish the same goal. But then I guess this is where it gets tricky because they're right. Like so many private security firms are police officers or were police officers.
Or were. Mm-hmm.
Right. So like,
Yep.
I'm not really sure if you're accomplishing the goal that you're trying to accomplish. I just think that maybe it's more about really doing background on who's on the set, whether it's a private security firm, whether it's a police officer. And I also wonder if a lot of these officers who are on set in the capacity of a normal workday, or if it's a side job, because I know a lot of officers work part-time jobs and side jobs. So I just feel like I need more information to be able to truly like pick a side.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point too, that a lot of these security firms, they house military veterans working there or cops that are still active duty cops or used to be cops. So I'm with you when you talk about the vetting process. I know in something that I read, it was talking about, well, there are a lot of Black security firms and maybe we should be looking at, Black security firms for people who aren't interested in hiring the police. But then once again, all skin folk ain't kin folk. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
right. You gotta know that. So I think it's a difficult situation to kind of maneuver, but I definitely think it's one that people should be looking into. Because when you talk about people being traumatized by police and then coming on set that should be a safe space, nobody wants to be re-traumatized. And also you got to make sure your people are trained correctly because a lot of times during the course of the day, these are on-duty police officers. If they're directing traffic or if they're working for the sheriff, it's a lot of different capacities that police officers work on set, especially when you're talking about in Hollywood, if you're not on the sound stage and you're out somewhere, you need cops to block off an area versus if you're doing something like the Emmys or the Oscars that just need security detail around, or you might need SWAT to make sure there's no bombs out, all this there's a bunch of different levels. But I think the right question to ask is like, what can we be doing to make sure our talent is comfortable, especially our Black talent? And then what can we be doing to make sure that the officers realize kind of their place in the importance, right, of that whole situation.
Right.
Yeah.
And I also
so I think it's an important question to ask. I think what we shouldn't be doing is like, we got to have cops. It's, it's what we got to do. It would be too expensive to get private security. I think it's a discussion that needs to be had,
I agree. I think that the problem with having police officers on set needs to be articulated precisely, as well as a solution to that problem, which I think goes beyond just saying we're not going to hire cops. And I was going to add that I think that oftentimes when a cop comes to set, it's a much different scenario and much different energy than a police officer who's patrolling the streets.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would imagine that a lot of situations that people have with police officers in everyday life is not the same situation that we're going to have if I'm on set with a police officer. And so I just feel like that really needs to be just thought about and clearly identified and addressed in a specific way that actually addresses what the real issues are. Because when I read that article, I felt a lot of it was like the police have too much power. And something I thought was interesting was that they issue the permits. I think that's a little odd. And I agree that the permit should be issued by local, city, state officials.
Yeah, that's what Kendrick Sampson was pushing for. Yep.
Right. Like, I think that's a little odd. So I definitely think there's some meat to this debate, to this issue. And it just, for me, I need to research it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a lot of areas where the power seems off balance, where you're kind of like, huh? Wait. And as somebody that's not super familiar with law enforcement, and Kendrick Sampson said that, like you just said, it's something that the city and state, like local areas, should take care of those permits. And I was like, well, how does that normally work? It does seem weird to me. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I feel like in a lot of times in this town, LAPD has their hands in a lot of places. So you just never know what's going on. Yeah, so we wanted to thank you guys for tuning in, supporting us, and watching. Can I remind you that if you are listening on a podcast, to definitely give us a 5-star review. We always love those. And then if you are watching us via YouTube, our AfterBuzz, our Black Hollywood Live station, that you give us a thumbs up. And we always appreciate comments. So whatever you have to say on this or any topics we're discussing, or if you want to see something in the future that you would like us to discuss, definitely hit us up in the comments. Yep. So our special segment. Oh boy. Social media was a buzz this week when, I was going to say your boy, but I don't know if he's your boy. When Kanye West, who last week had, struck this big deal with Gap, I thought, he's busy. He got, basically a company to save. Nope. Apparently he don't have enough on his plate. He's running for president.
So they say.
So tell us a little more about Kanye's bid for the presidency this year in 2020, in a few months.
So my thought is that it's too late to register, right? Like, the lists are closed. If you were not already on the list, like, you cannot now throw your name into the ring. That was my thought.
Mm-hmm.
But then I said, well, maybe he's already been registered and he just didn't announce. But then my next thought was that there have got to be people who like patrol these lists on a regular basis, right? To have this information. So I just think it's, maybe he was bored. He needed some excitement. He just sent out a tweet. And beyond all of that, who is voting for Kanye for president?
That is such a great question. Who is voting for Kanye for president? I felt like, and it's bizarre because I think he gets a lot of attention, but did he just want attention? I mean, he tweeted this week, him and Elon Musk with their like orange outfits or whatever. And so Elon Musk was like, I would vote for you.
Elon Musk scares me. I just think that outside of like his work and his professional ventures, like personally, I could just see him having some very interesting habits and choices and pastimes. And so he is a little scary to me. He is Angelina Jolie, vial of blood scary to me.
Yeah, I could see him renting out a private island and hunting people. I mean, I could probably see that. No, so I'm kidding. But I thought it was interesting that he was like, I will vote for you. And then like, it was trending. But I didn't see, and I read a lot, I didn't see anybody saying that they were going to actually vote for him. Also, he hasn't released any type of platform. He hasn't told us anything he's working on. Apparently, his like theme is 2020 vision, which, okay. But but I think it'll be interesting to see where it goes. Like you said, he hadn't registered with anybody. There's like 8 or 9 states where it's too late to register, period. So yeah, I think it is really interesting to see how he's turned on his homeboy Trump, because I thought that was his dude, and now you're running against him. So,
well, I mean, I think that's fair play when we talk about Trump, because I've always said Trump is only out for Trump, and he does what's best for him. So, if anything, he should be like, game recognizes game. Like Kanye didn't do anything to Trump that Trump wouldn't have done to someone else. And maybe it's the name of his new album. High School Dropout. To
Presidential Dropout.
Yeah.
Interesting.
He's graduated to the next level.
Yeah, he is on some level. That I will agree with you. He's on some level. I don't know what level it is, but he is on some level, and definitely, well, he did what he wanted to do, which was he got everybody talking about it.
Everyone was talking about it.
It's in our social media rundown. Yeah, so that will be interesting to follow. If anything else develops along those lines, guys, we'll cover it over here at the Black Hollywood Reporter. Another celebrity running for president. That definitely would be interesting. So anyway, we thank you guys so much for joining us today. I want to especially thank LaToya Blakely for being my special guest co-host. You did wonderful, as I knew you would. It's always a great time hosting with you. Where can these guys catch up with you?
You can find me on Instagram at LaToya.Blakely, Twitter at Blakely LaToya.
Awesome. And then you can find me at HostK, that's HostKay on Twitter and Instagram. We will see you guys next week when we will have a very special guest, variety reporter Angelique Jackson, and she'll be talking about her cover story, which was on the reckoning of Hollywood, and Black Hollywood is the industry listening. So we'll have that for you guys next week, and we'll see you then. Bye, guys.
On behalf of our BHL staff, we would like to thank you for tuning in to Black Hollywood Live, the world's first digital broadcast network devoted entirely to urban entertainment and pop culture. Check out our Black Hollywood Live YouTube page for even more great programming and amazing content, and be sure to subscribe and like our channel when you do. I'm your BHL host, Nakia Monet, and you can find me on all social media at Kiki Boom Boom or at Black Hollywood Live. Black Hollywood Live, Hollywood redefined.